Folks, it's time to rank all the weapons in the final Season 4. And I'm going to do my absolute best to make this the most accurate tier list according to the current meta in the game. And when I say meta, I'm referring to the cash out game modes, ranked, world tour. I'm not referring to power shift or bank it or any of the quick play modes because they do not have any effect on the balancing in the finals. Now before I start, there's also a couple of rules that I need to mention. Just because a weapon has a high TTK doesn't mean that it goes into S tier. Alright, if that was the case, I could make this tier list in 5 seconds without even thinking about it. Alright, the second thing is, just because a weapon was S tier in previous seasons doesn't mean that it's instantly going to go back into S tier this season. So just because a weapon still has the same stats as Season 3 doesn't mean it's going to perform the same as it did in Season 3. Alright, the weapon hasn't changed, but the game has. Yeah, and I think that's all I really have to say there. Alright, so the 9-3R burst pistol. I'm putting this into C tier. I would have always put this into D tier, but there are worse weapons. I don't see why you would pick it above an SMG or above the V9S. It makes no sense. The AKM is an A tier weapon. It's not an S tier weapon. There's better options for medium. It is definitely effective, especially now that you have the red dot sight, but you're after losing some ammo. So it's gone down from 36 to 32 ammo. It does the same damage, the same recoil, and it has a red dot sight. So it's improved, I guess, in my opinion, but it's definitely not an S tier weapon. It's solid. It's a very solid choice. The CL40 is a highly overrated weapon. This thing will absolutely dominate in silver or gold lobbies, but once you get to plat and diamond, this thing is not going to be effective. It's really strong in terms of you can just pick it up and use it. You do not have to break the skill barrier with this. It's so easy to use. It's very effective, but it's not A tier, so I'm putting it into B, the dagger. The dagger is strong. It one-shots all the builds in the game. If you add a quick melee, it one-shots a heavy. I'm putting it into C tier. It's better than the 9-3R, but it's ineffective in high rank lobbies. The dual blades, D tier. They haven't changed since Season 3. They're absolutely shockingly bad. FAMAS, I'm going to put it the first slot of B tier. I do not think this is an A tier weapon. I know a lot of people disagree with this, but it is a solid weapon if you just want to pick up a gun that's easy to use and do good damage. But I mean, you know, it's going to get outclassed by the Pike, or it's going to get outclassed by the AK, especially the model. I do not know why you would pick the FAMAS if you're trying to get better at the game and reach the high tier lobbies. It's a good gun, alright, but it's not A tier. FCAR is A tier. Not much to say on the FCAR. It's 25 shots, it does high damage. The recoil is terrible, but it's still a solid pick. It melts lights, does a job on mediums. It's very ineffective against heavies, but I'm going to put it here below the AK. Flamethrower, B tier. Very easy to use, very effective close range, but yeah, it's very simple to counter, so B tier. The slug shotgun, also B tier. I'm going to put it ahead of the flamethrower. This is a solid weapon. I've seen some good players use it. It has big flaws though, and you know, once you start to play out of its range, so if you play maybe 20 meters away from the heavy, he's going to struggle. His shots are going to be sliding past you because it's not hit scan. It's very difficult to use, so B tier. Lewis gun, S tier, 100% without a doubt. With the new recoil, this is a very strong weapon. It is better than the AK, it's better than the FCAR, it's a solid gun, it's for heavy as well. You know, even if you think the AK is better, remember, this is for heavy. You have an extra 100 health, so yeah. LH1, I'll put it here. The LH1 is it's just getting outclassed, especially with the Pike now. I don't know why a light player would choose the LH1 ahead of the V9S or any of the short range weapons. Even the XP is a better choice than LH1. It's very good, but it's outclassed by other options. Speaking of other options, the M11, highly underused weapon. It fits in right here. It's great. It absolutely melts. It has high recoil though, and anything past maybe 10 meters, it's kind of a pea shooter. So I'll put it there. Up close, it absolutely melts. It's really easy to use. Hip fire is strong on it, but there are better options. M60 is better than the Lewis gun. With the sight, it is, in my opinion, it's the best heavy weapon in the game. You know, you've all the ammo, you don't have to reload. It's very forgiving, you know, and I'll get to the new weapons in a second. It's very forgiving, right? Even if you miss a couple of shots, you can just correct it, especially with the sight. It's so easy. Get rid of the visual clutter. This weapon is so strong. It is better than the Lewis gun. The Lewis gun might have a bit stronger damage, but the M60 gives you so many more options in terms of the way you want to play the fight. Grenade launcher is not D tier anymore. I'm going to put this up here, put it in between these. Heavy grenade launcher is quite strong, but it's very, very situational, and for that reason, I mean, you just cannot put it into B tier. It doesn't beat any of these weapons. It's actually quite strong though, especially if you build your team around it, and that's the problem though. You have to build your whole team around this grenade launcher build, so it's too specific. The model is probably the best gun in the game. The model is a perfect example of a weapon that has not changed, but it's just become so prominent in the high tier lobbies. The skill gap is so big now, and this weapon, if you can get good at it, it's so strong, especially in the current meta. This gun is just solid. It's so much better than the AK, it's so much better than the FCAR. I highly recommend picking up the model if you're a medium player. Revolver, put B tier. It's so outshined by the new medium weapon. It's just unfortunate because I think the revolver is strong, but then again, to be consistent with it requires so much skill, and you know, that's another thing I have to factor in here. Like, you know, if you can do the same job with the model or the same job with the pike with half the effort, why would you pick the revolver? And you know, that's why it's going into B tier. The bow, I'll put the bow right there. I think it fits in there. It's very strong. The other thing about the bow is just because you don't see that many people using it doesn't mean it's not a good weapon, and that I can definitely prove that by a lot of these weapons in here. But the bow, it is strong. It is just too difficult to be consistent with a weapon that is not hit scan, and I have to put it right there. Riot shield, better than the dual blades, barely. It got a nice damage buff, but just an ineffective weapon. You're not going to progress using the riot shield. Does this job, but once again, you have to build your whole team around it. Very specific. You know what, the riot shield and the heavy grenade launcher is probably a good combo, but you know, it's just not very effective in the high rank lobbies. The SA-12 is A tier. It's not an S tier weapon, especially with the mesh shield nerf. I think, you know, that was a nice combo, but with pikes and models, especially some of the light weapons, I think the SA-12 is kind of falling off a little bit. It would have been S tier, but no. The rhythm is too weird, and it just requires a very, very specific playstyle. Now it's strong, but no, it's not S tier. Double barrel is A tier, 100%. It's probably the second best light weapon in the game. Extremely, extremely underused, underrated. Double barrel, I can say without that. One shot lights, two shot heavy, two shot medium. Requires a very specific playstyle. It is situational in a way. Sledgehammer is right here. Very strong weapon. Requires a very, very good player to use it. Obviously, it's going to be effective in like quick play and all those game modes, but at high ranks, Sledgehammer can be very strong, but it requires a very, very good player. And I don't actually think you need to run the Winch Claw with it, even though that's like the go-to pick. I think Charge and Slam is just as good, and you get that extra damage boost with that too. You know, rather than bring them to you, you can go to them with the Charge and Slam. But that's just my opinion. Spear is second worst weapon in the game. Don't know why you would pick the spear over the hammer. The range advantage is non-existent. I just don't see why you pick the spear. It's any weapon for heavy can be good if you have Charge and Slam and an RPG selected, but just because you went 10-0 and got 8 kills with your ability doesn't mean the spear is a good weapon. No. Sniper, it is below the two of these, unfortunately. The bow has stepped up in my opinion. LH1 has always been better than the sniper, but the sniper is, I just don't think it can be too effective in the final rounds. Sword is an A tier weapon. Is it better than the double barrel? Nope, not in my opinion. It's got a nice buff, but I just think that I always see it. A sword player will take the sword for the first 2 rounds, and in the final round they'll switch to like the XP or something, and that says a lot about the sword. I think there's just situations where if you're facing another light and he's got the stun gun on, you know what you're gonna do. Like, it's a great weapon. It's amazing at pub stomping and in low tier lobbies, but I just think in the higher ranks it's not going to be effective in the final round. So I'm putting it below the double barrel. The throw knives are A tier, unfortunately. They are very high damage, and the reason they go into A tier is the lack of downtime. You don't have to reload, so you can just keep chasing players with no consequences. All you have to do is just keep spamming, follow them while they're reloading, and that's how you play the throw knives. You follow a player, and when he's reloading, you punish him. All these weapons, you have to reload, you take a downtime. That's where the throw knives are advantageous. I think if they do add in a reload animation or a stamina bar, these are gonna mid B tier, but for now A tier. The V9S is the best light weapon in the game. It is, yeah, it's better than them too. The V9S is so strong. It's completely replaced the XP54. Long range, short range, mid range. This is the best all-rounded light weapon. This is a huge skill issue weapon. You know, you'll see it in lower lobbies and it won't be effective. In the higher lobbies, if someone's using this in plat or diamond, it's a very, very strong weapon, and that player is very good. I actually find that its biggest advantage is its name. It's a silenced pistol, but it's actually the loudest gun in the game. And when you hear it just pew, 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 and it's so loud, it's very, very scary, and it's actually quite an intimidating weapon to come across.
Dude, this fucking rises.
No recoil. All you have to do is make sure you have the trigger finger. Very difficult to keep that up, by the way. If you're trying to spam shoot all the time and aim at the same time, it's very difficult, and that's its biggest problem. But if you get that down, the weapon is just so strong. It's very effective. XP is, it's still very, very, very strong at range, but it has a huge problem now, and that is the fact that medium has the pike. So I'm gonna put it second here. This would have always been S tier last season, and probably maybe the best weapon in the game, but I think now it's worse than the AK. It's better than all these weapons. It's still a very strong weapon, and the headshot multiplier is ridiculous if you can get the control onto their head, but I don't think it's going to be as strong this season, especially because of these weapons. Now, light shotgun is B tier right here. Very strong weapon. It does not beat the double barrel, and that's why it cannot go A tier. I just don't get why you would pick it over the double barrel. You have more shots in it, and you have less downtime, but the weapon's rhythm is too slow to get the kills off in a quick fashion, and that's what the double barrel can do. You get in one shot, you're done. The matter, it might take 3 shots to do the same job, and that's the problem with it. Now, you don't have the downtime, so if you can play around it, if you can play it kind of like the model maybe, it might be strong. I've used it, it is strong, but it's not as strong as the weapons up here. The pike is the second best weapon in the game. It's ridiculous. You mightn't agree with that. You might think that it's worse than these 3 weapons, but just give it a couple of weeks. If it doesn't get nerfed, it might go up to the best weapon in the game. It's completely down to people learning the pattern and the rhythm of using it. Once people have it down, and once people have mastered this weapon, it's going to be so strong. I do see it getting a nerf just because the damage is so strong. I don't actually think it even warrants a huge nerf, but yeah, it's so effective. 3 shots light, very effective against mediums, especially long range. Solid weapon. Kimbos, they're right here. They're very, very strong, and they're hard to use. They have one big flaw, and that is that you don't get forgiveness for missing your shots. Unlike with the M60 or the Lewis gun, where you could, have a few stray bullets, you have to stand still with the Akimbos, and you have to ADS, which means you're going to be static and you're going to be trading most of the time. Now, while they are effective at range and better than these weapons at range, you will get punished at mid or close range if you're trading and you miss a shot, because there's time in between the shots. You won't be able to correct your aim that quickly, and if a player's dashing around, you get punished. I think they're very strong. I think there is a skill gap with them, but they're not better than these weapons, and they're just about better than these 2 weapons right here. That's my tier list. I cannot find many problems with it, other than you might say the bow goes a bit lower, and there's definitely an argument there. I could also see people saying that the FAMAS should go up to A tier, but I just want to ask you this question: do you actually think the FAMAS can be better than these weapons? I just think there's an effectiveness ceiling for the FAMAS. I think you get to a certain point where the weapon cannot be any better. It's so easy to use, but I just think that at some point in your career you have to decide the pike is a better option for you to become a better player. And the same thing for the AK and even the FCAR. The FAMAS is capped out. It has its use, and it's very effective in gold lobbies maybe, but no, it has a ceiling. I could also see people obviously saying that the grain damage should be higher, but it's completely overrated, and you just need to get over the fact that there's so many counters to this. But yeah, I mean, I think that list is solid. I do think all these weapons are warranted in S tier. I do not think any single weapon from this list deserves to go any higher. And it's just that simple. These weapons up here fit into nearly 99% of games and 99% of situations. These weapons in A tier will get outclassed in certain situations. And obviously, like, the double barrel can be the best weapon in the game, or the sword can be the strongest weapon, but these weapons will just fit the majority of situations better, and they're so strong to begin with. Folks, hope you enjoyed the video. If you would make any changes or you disagree with anything on the list, be sure to let me know in the comment section. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.